In this fifth and final module, we review a range of tips and suggestions to help you excel in your interview and outperform your competition so you get the job that you want. Let's start. We're going to finish up with a variety of important points regarding preparation for the interview and bringing it to the point where you accomplish your goal, which is to get a job offer. Body language, defined as the unconscious outward reflection of internal feelings. How do you sit? How do you move? How do you respond during the course of the interview? Do you make eye contact? Very important. Do you lean into the conversation, not leaning over the desk, but leaning forward? If you were talking with some friends about a great vacation that you took, you would get excited and you would kind of lean forward and get into the discussion. Well, that's exactly what's going on here. You're enthusiastic, you're energetic, you're passionate about the job, about your skills, and about your confidence of success in the job. So you getting into the conversation. Don't lean back with your arms folded like it's an imposition upon you. You're really excited about this interview. Your body language should show it. Be sensitive to the cues of the interviewer. If the interviewer seems to be showing a lack of interest, running through your head quickly is what's going on? Am I not being exciting enough? Am I talking in a monotone and in a boring way? Am I just digressing and throwing all kinds of extraneous details in a response? So the interviewer is kind of turned off and not getting the response he wants. And so therefore can't wait until the interview is over. Well, you need to reverse things, get the interest of the interviewer back on track. The interviewer itself, minimize your interruptions. You can nod occasionally. It's a good visual cue that shows that you're paying attention. React. Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't realize that. Oh, thanks for mentioning that. I didn't know. Really? You know, those kinds of words here and there show that you're listening and you're engaged. Don't overdo it. It will get a little bit overwhelming and perhaps too obvious. But sprinkled here and there show through various signs, either orally or visually, that you are engaged and involved in the conversation. When the interview is done, there are 3 questions you should have resolved before you walk out of the room. What's the next step? Usually the next step is taken by the interviewer. I'll have to get back to you with either scheduling a second interview or with a response whether you're hired or not. Maybe you have to get back with something. Perhaps they've asked for a list of references that you didn't have with you, or some questions that they want you to respond to. In any case, you need to know who takes the next step and what's the time frame. Is it the end of the week? Is it next week? Is it 2 weeks? And if they're not giving you a time frame, I mentioned earlier when we were going over the questions to ask, this particular point, if they say, well, thanks very much for coming in, we'll be in touch, don't walk out not knowing the time frame. Ask the question, when will you be making your decision? That's kind of a softer question that I like, rather than, well, when will I hear from you? So based on the time frame, you know when to get back to them if they don't follow up, if you don't get a call. Get back and say, if they say the end of the week and now you're in the beginning of next week, so you call or email, however you've been communicating up to then, can you give me an update of where you are regarding filling this job? Don't let it hang, because don't think if they haven't called you that they don't want to hire you. There could be other things going on and you need to know what those things are. And you also need to send a thank you note no later than the end of the day. Some of the do's and don'ts: be nice to anyone you meet on during the course of the interview. Look professional. Don't have your cell phone interrupt the discussion. Have extra copies of your resume. Maybe the interviewer forgot hers, or you're meeting with other people who haven't even seen your resume. So you could say, oh, I have extra copies. I'll give it to so-and-so. Shows you're prepared. Your thank you note should be in the mail, the email, no later than that day. And the thank you note should be a little bit unique. Not simply, well, thanks very much for your time, but talk about something that you learned during the course of the interview that made a great impression on you. And obviously, your not late, come a little bit early, dress professionally. I don't think it's a good idea to take notes during the course of the interview because it's a distraction for you, it's a distraction for the interviewer. And if you go to a lunch interview, don't eat anything that's liable to spatter on your clothes. If you have a telephone interview, make sure you're in a quiet place where the phone won't ring or if someone won't be walking behind you or there'll be other noise as a distraction. I like the idea of standing when you speak. That just gives you more energy. If it's a video interview, similarly, but you need to be careful about what's in the background. No bright lights, no people walking by, no laundry hanging on a line or books on a shelf, all piled in disheveled piles. Look professional. Organize your paper and look at the camera rather than at the person on the screen. Depending on the size of the screen and where you have your camera, you could be looking off to the side, and your interviewer is looking at you while you're looking to the side. Very distraction. Here are the top 10 interview mistakes. They're pretty much already covered in our discussion, but one I want to highlight is number 5, not differentiating yourself from your competition, other people applying for the job. I've given you 3 ways to differentiate yourself, at least 3 ways. One is by doing research, extensive research before you walk in. The second way is by having a strategy, your SAY strategy that you will practice and know in great depth. And the third way is by having some good thought provoking questions for you to ask your interviewer. And of course, the number one mistake people make is not being prepared. When I'm discussing invest in yourself, I have in mind people who may be going into a new career or getting back into the workplace after being out for a number of years, either for travel or to raise a family or some other use of a couple of years away from working. Show your interest in a particular job or field before you go into the interview. So here are some thoughts about how you can show your interest arising from some period before the interview indicates a serious interest in that kind of job and not just because you have an interview scheduled that day. You're going into the interview with a great mindset. You are the best person for the job. In fact, you are so confident that you feel like telling the interviewer that she doesn't have to meet with anybody else, just hire you because you're the best. Well, you're obviously not going to say that. A little bit too arrogant, I think, but you want to go in with that mindset and look at the interview as a challenge to convince the interviewer of that fact that you know you are the best. So you got to get yourself into the best frame of mind possible. Ask yourself these 5 questions. Do I have my strategy clear? Do I know what to say? The SAY strategy. Your answer should obviously be yes. Am I confident and prepared? Yes. Do I look professional? Absolutely. Is my energy level up? Yes. That should be a really energetic yes. And am I ready to make a great first impression? Absolutely. So those 5 yeses. In baseball terminology, you may not bat 1,000, but you're going to have a pretty good batting average on your job interviews if you could answer 5 yeses to these questions. So in summary, develop your strategy, develop your skills inventory, practice the SAY strategy, practice for those tough questions out loud. Get a family member, a friend, or just stand in front of the mirror and practice your responding to questions. Say the answers, don't just think them, because when you try to put the words together in well thought out sentences, it's a lot tougher. So that's how you're going to practice. Use the key words that we talked about, reference to your critical skills and words that might come from the job advertisement. Be very familiar with the do's and don'ts. Invest in yourself if you're in that situation and ask for the job. Now, what that means is not, please give me the job. It's by showing that you have the skills, convincing the interviewer that you have the skills and you have the passion, the energy, and the enthusiasm for the job. That's how you ask for the job. And of course, remember, above all, get the job by being confident, comfortable, and prepared for your interview.